I am going to show you how to create a professional API using Fast API and a multi-model database called ArangoDB. This database will allow us to create a document DB and also a graph database. It can also be used as a key value pair. So to get started, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create an instance in Docker because we will set up the database on this Docker container. So the first thing we need to do is have Docker install, of course. And as you can see, I don't have any images at the moment in this Docker application. So I'm going to hit the terminal by pressing CMD. So I open a terminal and I will set up my Docker container here. I have already prepared a line of code that I will copy and paste. And then we have to see where I got this from. Before I run it, let me go to Docker ArangoDB. And then right here, we are going to see all the commands that we can run against this database. And the most important thing is that at the moment, version 3.9.2 is the latest one. Therefore, you can see that I will be running 3.9.2 here. So let me explain this line of code first. I say that I will be running a Docker container, Docker run. I will create an instance of Arango without authentication, meaning that I will not have a specific admin for it. It will just be the global administrator. I will be using the port for ArangoDB on my local Windows machine 8529 and in the Docker container 8529. This -d means that it will be a daemon, meaning that it will be running right away. I will give a name to it. I will call it Fast API, and then I like to put the version of it next to the name. And the image that I will download is the ArangoDB version 3.9.2. So press enter. And of course, I don't have the image in my computer locally. So it's going to download it and it's going to install it. And actually it's going to run it as well. So let's give it a couple of seconds and we will see the output of it. So while we do that, we can also have VScode ready for us to run the application and code on it. So it's almost completed. We'll pause the video. All right, so this has finished installing. We don't need the command prompt anymore. So we just close it. And then we hit Docker and you will see this image popping up. If the image is not there, I have seen that a couple of times, just close Docker. It's not really going to close it. It's just going to minimize it on the system tray and open it or pop it up, back up again, and this will be shown. So what we have at the moment in ArangoDB, that will be the images. If we click on this in use, we can see that this image is up and running. So what we do now is we go to localhost port 8529 and we're going to have access to the database. We don't have any collections at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to just click add a collection. We're going to call it items. You can call it users, whatever you want, and just save it. And that's it. We have the items collection and we're going to populate it via Fast API. That was the setup for the database. Now let's go to VScode and we're going to create a new application. So let me just go and create a folder somewhere in the computer. So I will go to Fast API and I will just create a new folder. You can call this whatever you want. Let's call it company. So this will be the folder where we're going to code the application. Yes, I trust the authors. And this is going to be an advanced tutorial, so you will see especially how I do routing here. So what we're going to do now is we are going to create a requirements file. Let's call it just.txt. And what I will put here is the requirements that I need for the Fast API. So looking at the documentation, we will be using Fast API. We are also use UBcorn, the standard version of it. And all these I'm just copying from the Fast API web page. And I will also need, let's see how I can get multi-data from the forms. Let's see, this multi-part, that's what I will need as well. So I will just, multi-part will be part of the requirements. Save, and what I usually do is I use the terminal here. I am already inside the company folder. So what I will do now is I am going to start a virtual environment, but first I need to create this company environment. So I will say Python. I'm going to run the module VM on this folder. So the dot means the actual folder I am at the moment. You can see I already downloaded the different files and folders needed for this application. Takes a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to start the virtual environment. This is how I do it. I press the letter S, and then I press on the tab key, and then I press A and tap again. So now you can see that I activated the company virtual environment, and now I need to install these requirements. So I will say pip install the requirements, that's the -r, and then it's coming from the requirements.txt. This just pop up because I pressed tab. Let's do it in this way. So right now it's downloading all the needed files for Fast API, UBcorn, and Python multipart. If you want to upgrade pip, why not? We can just copy this part of the command, and I will just do Python, and then I just paste what I just copied, just if I want to upgrade it. Takes a couple of seconds and pip will be ready. Now let's do a pip list. So you can see that I have downloaded a bunch of files. That was from the requirements part. Let's close it. What we're going to do now is we are going to create, and we just go and do this. We're going to create a file, let's call it app.py. And in this file, this will be the entry point of the application. So we're going to use Fast API, of course. So we say from Fast API, import Fast API. Be careful, it's case sensitive. And what we're going to do is we're going to say that we want to create an application where we instantiate the Fast API class. And let's create a very simple route. Let's call it app.get. And we are just going to point to the main entry of the application, which will be the /. And right here, we are going to define, and here comes the catch of Fast API. It has to be asynchronous. So we say async, and we're going to define a function. Let's call it getCom. And just to keep it really simple, we're just going to return and create here a dictionary. Since this is an API, I will be returning JSON. So I will just, the info will be welcome. Sorry for the spelling here, welcome. So save it. And now we're going to run this application. To do that, since we installed UVcorn, you write UVcorn. And then we are going to run the app application, which is inside the company file. So what we do is we say company :app. So company is this folder and app is this file. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm misleading you here. I'm confused here. App is this file and the app here is the Fast API application. That's how it should be done. And then we can say -- reload. So just so you understand it, if this file here was called something different, let's say that this was called X, then you will do X in there, right in here. X app reload, but this is called app, so we'll leave it as app. And this app here, as I told you, is this app there. Let's hit enter. And now it's running on port 8000. And we could go to the browser and check it from there, but this is an API. So what I will do is I will show you how I use Thunder Client. I have already installed this extension. You can just go and check it. Let me just do it for you here. Thunder Client. Is it the best one? I wouldn't say it's the worst or the best. If you want to do it via Postman, you just use Postman as well. So Thunder Client I will be using for this video. Hit the Thunder Client extension, and I will create a new collection here by clicking on the collection. Click on this menu bar and let's call it company. So right now I have this collection company. You do not have all these other, let's say, collections because you don't have this created, but you will have the company here. So in the company collection, just click on these three dots and create a new request. Let's call it get home. Press enter. And let me just close this so you can just have the whole overview of it. This is the get home request. So we're going to point to localhost. As I mentioned to you, the port is 8000. You can see 8000 in there. So we do port 8000. And then we hit send, and then we say info welcome. So up to this point, you can see that this is straightforward. I'm not going to get into the details about how Fast API is doing it, because I want to get to the advanced part of it. If you get this yellow underline here, which is quite annoying by the way, I will show you how you can get rid of it. Just first check the zoom of it, it's good. So to get the yellow underline away from it, you are going to do this. You are going to press, let me just put for the moment, Control, and then you're going to do Shift, and then P. Once you have done that, you are going to write select interpreter, and then you're going to find the path where this is placed. So let's do it. Control Shift P, select interpreter. Now right here you are going to say enter interpreter path. Click on it and click on find. And once you click on find, move to the company folder, wherever you have or whatever you have called that folder where you have the project. Then click on scripts and open it, and then click on python.exe. executable of it. And then you just say select interpreter. And that's how you get rid of the under yellow line. So this was the first part of the video. That's the setup. Let's move to the more advanced part of it, where we create the different routes. So to do that, we are going to go to, imagine that you have multiple routes. You don't want to have all the routes inside this file. So to break it into pieces, what you're going to do is you are going to do the following. Let's say that this is the get home route, as you can see it there. What we need now is to create a new entry here. Let's create a new file and let's call this get underscore home.py. So right here, we're going to put the code for this route. So let me do that again. So we have a space. We don't need this API tester at the moment. And in the get home, this is what we're going to do. We're going to say from fast API import API router. This will allow us to define this file as a route. Once we have done that, we are going to say that the router will be the API router. So this is instantiated right there. And now we just create the decorator add router. And then we're going to get the exact same thing as we did before, the /. So basically it's this one there, but now it's called router instead of app. And then we're just going to copy this async function and we're going to paste it right in there. Async def get home return info welcome. So this is everything you need to do in this route. Then we're going to go to the app.py and right here we can just delete all these, and I will delete this because it's noise for you at the moment. And what we're going to do is let me just put some fancy spaces in there. So we're going to import get home. That's the file that we created right there. And then we say that the app, this app here, is going to include, and then you will see how I get some auto completion in here. It automatically shows the include router. If it doesn't pop up, try to do this. Just try to write IN, for example, and then press Control spacebar, and then you will get this. And we're going to include the router called get home. And then we say dot router. So this is just going to say that from the get home file, we're going to include this router. Save it. Let's just check the terminal. We don't have any errors at the moment. And click on send. You should see info welcome. And then we say info hi, save it. Then we see the info hi. So this is how we create the route. But obviously this doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to create a post route so we can actually create an item inside our database here. At the moment, if you click on items here, you can see that there are no items right there. So that's what we're going to create in the next section. So let's go ahead and create a new file. Let's call it post create item.py. And with this post create item, what we're going to do is we are going to create a route for it, of course. So from fast API, import API router, just as we did before with the get home. And we also need to import the form. You will see why, because we're going to pass values via the form here. And what we're going to do now is we are going to, let's create a route. Router equals API router. And let's test it first of all, so we don't code something that's probably going to have errors. Then from the router, we're going to create a post request, and then this will point to items here. This is the professional way to do it. It should be written like that. And it's going to be an asynchronous call. We're going to create a function. Let's call it create underscore item. And this function for the moment is just going to return a dictionary where it says info item created. It's just to test it. So let's go to the app.py and let's create this route as well. And this will be for the post create item. So we say import post create item, and then we say app.include, same as we did right there. But now we are just going to include from the post create item the dot router. So just so you can see the whole line for a second, I will zoom out so you can see it like that. Perfect. We save it. And then we go to Thunder client. That's here, localhost 8000. And I don't want to create a new route for it because I just want to use the same one. So I will say it's going to be a post request and it's going to point to items. Let's send it. And then we can see that the item has been created. Send it again. You can see it right there. So this is how we created the route for the post create item. So what we need to do in this route, let me just close that one. We don't need it. We need to code it. And here you're going to see something really, really smart about the video. So far we have the routes split into different files that's necessary. And in ArangoDB, you can go and read all the documentation and you can see how you can create different routes against the database, how you can use the HTTP protocol, how you can use drivers. And for me, all this is a lot of very well documented stuff, but I came out with my own driver. So I created my own solution to it, which actually allows me to have a connection pool. And this is the really advanced part of it. So that's what I want to show you now. So what I will do is I am going to use something called httpx, which is a library for Python that allows users to create asynchronous calls to a server. So you can go and read more about it. That's the link. And I will put this underneath the video description as well. So this is where the video becomes extremely advanced. I'm going to show you how I create a connection pool. Let me just put it here. So you can see how I can speed up the process of the connections to the database, keep some connections alive, and make this really, really professional. So what we are going to do is we need to import httpx. So if I just say import httpx, this will fail because I don't have this file, this library imported. So how about if I go to the requirements and then I say httpx, save it. Let me, for a moment, I will close this get home. Let me just save it first. So Control S, so save successfully. And then I can just close it. I will go to the terminal, Control C, the application has been killed, Control L, I clear the terminal. And what I will do now is I will say pip install -r for the requirements and then define requirements.txt. I just like to delete that because it makes it more beautiful. And then just press enter, and this should install the httpx module. Now the under yellow line disappeared, and pip list. Hopefully I can just export it out of the box. It's right in there. Perfect. So Control L again, and then UVcorn reload the app. Great, so this has been done. And what I will do now is I am going to move to the app.py. And this is where things become extremely, extremely nice. You will see what I created here. I will do this. I am going to also import httpx in here. And I'm going to create a couple of database clients. So remember, I will be creating my own driver basically, and I will be connecting to the database as if this were a client. So I will just call it DB client 1. So this will be one connection. And this is going to be an httpx, and this is going to be an async client. Now you can go and read more about it in the httpx page that I just showed you before. This is the first client. It's not connected to the database. It's just a client that I will be using eventually. And then I will have client 2, which will also be a client that I will use eventually. If you were to print the options about these clients, you will see that the connection is being kept alive. So this is keep alive. That will be the part of the headers that will be sent through the HTTP protocol. So this will be kept alive automatically. And then what I will do is I will just create a list of free clients. We can call it free DB underscore clients. So it makes more sense. And this list will contain client 1 and it will contain client 2. Now, if you were to have thousands of connections per second, maybe you want to have 10 of these clients that will be kept alive. So the connection will always be open between your Fast API application and the database. So you don't have to do this three-way handshake that will be necessary and takes a lot of time. So what you do is just create more clients in the application. 2 clients will handle thousands of connections at the same time. So this will do the job. So once we have this, that will be the pool. Let me just put here, database pool, so you understand what I'm getting to. So save it. And I think that's the only thing I need for the pool of it. So then we can go to the post create item. And in here, we're going to be using the free DB clients. So we're going to import from the app file, from app. App is this file there, that's the app. We're going to import the free DB clients. So these will be those 2 clients that I can use at the moment. It will also be nice if I import UUID, because I want to create my own IDs for the items. And I will also import JSON. Do that, you will see where it's needed in a second. So once we have done that, we are going to pretend that the item has a name. So we are going to, in this create item, we're going to say that we get an item name that will be passed is necessary. It's going to be a string and it's going to come from the form. And this form that you see here, we need this, by the way. This is coming from the Fast API documentation. So once I have this item name, I will just say info item created, and then I will also create the item name where I will pass this variable called item underscore name. It's just for testing purposes at the moment. I will save it. And what we need to do is hit Thunder client again. this route called get home is not going to be called get home anymore. Not to confuse you, let's just create a new route under company. Let's just hit company right there. For some reason, I don't have the option to create a route. Let me see why. I am in the company, and probably it's because of the zooming right there. New request, create item. So this create item is going to be a post request, localhost, port 8000 /. And then you can see that we have the response in there. Now we just move it to the right side, and then we're going to work on it. So this route is working fine because we see the item name is being empty. It's a post request. So we're going to hit the body, and then we're going to click on form, and we're going to be able to create here the item name. So that's why we needed this form in there. This form is the equivalent to an HTML form, and we need to pass the item name like if this were, or if it was being used in an input field. So we say item name, and we're just going to write the letter A in there. And then we said enter, send, sorry, and then we get the letter A. If we change it to the letter B, click send, we will see the letter B. So this is working fine. We will just leave it as the letter A there. So A is there. Remember that you also need to validate the item name and so on, but that will be beyond the purpose of the video. Now, you also need to create an ID for the item. So I would say item ID. You can also let the database give an ID to it, but I prefer to create my own IDs. So this will be a UUID, and that's why we imported this UUID, .UUID4. And just so you know it, this UUID4 is actually an object, and we want to use it as text so we can put it in the database. So we'll cast it to a string. And I actually don't like the UUIDs having the dashes because it doesn't really make sense for this application. So I will just replace, and then I will just replace the dash with nothing. That's what I like to do. So now I'm going to expand this return value. I will break it into a couple of lines so you can see it. Item created, and then I will do the item ID. That will be the item ID that I have in there. It's just how I build the application one step at a time. I will send the request again, and hopefully here is the ID, and that's the name. So everything is working fine so far. So here comes the nice part of it. We need to put this in the database. So what I do is I create an object, a dictionary, where I'm just going to say that the key, you must call it like this, _key, because that's how ArangoDB works. You can go and read more about it if you want it. So I'm not going to bore you with that because I want to show you how the pool, the connection pool works. So that will be the item ID. And then I want to create the item name, which will be actually coming from the item _name. So that will be the dictionary that I just created. So I will save it and send again just to make sure that I don't have any errors in the system so far, one line at a time. And then what I will do is I'm going to create a query, and this query is going to be a dictionary again, where the key is called query. Actually, this has to be called query because that's how ArangoDB will understand it. This Q is just for me to know that that's the stemming. You can also call it STMT. You can call it anything you want. I will just call it Q. And this query will point to the following Arango DB command. This is called AQL, Arango Query Language. That's why AQL stands for. And then I will say insert. Here comes a variable. The variable will be called item. This will be replacing a second with a real item. This is just a placeholder at the moment in the collection called items. This tutorial is not about ArangoDB as such, it's just so you can see how I use the database. So I will insert item in items, and I want to get the newly inserted item. Then I will have the next key value pair in this dictionary. It's called bind vars. It must be called like this. You cannot call it anything else. That's the name of it. And this bind vars is in itself a dictionary. Now this placeholder add item, that will be this item. You just do not write the add in front of it. That's how the syntax takes place. And this item will point to the item dictionary. Let me do this in multiple lines so you can see a little bit better. That was the return value, and here comes the bind vars. So this is what you have so far. We are going to insert placeholder. You can call this whatever you want. If you call it add item X, this will be item X. If you call it just item, this will be item. And this item that's highlighted at the moment is this variable there. So this is the command that I want to execute. But since I will be using the httpx library and HTTP only works with text, I need to convert this into text. So that's why I use this JSON import in there. So what I will do is I will just say json.dump s, that means dump a string, that means create a string from all these command. As you can see, I open the parentheses there and I close it there. So all this just became a string. Before it was a dictionary. Then what I will do, here comes the part that I have mentioned many times. I will create a client. Let me just save it for now and send. Okay, everything is working fine. If you want to see what the queue contains, I will just say a print queue. And in the terminal, when I send the request, you can see that this is what queue contains. And this is what the database will understand. No drivers here. I create my own driver via the connection pool. So what we do now is we're going to create a client. Now this is not, let's call it DB client. This is not client 1. It's not client 2. It's just a client that I will be using. And what this client will do is this. It's going to get one of the free clients. So free DB clients. This is any of these two. And then this will actually pop the ones first. So if client 1 is first, you can see it here. This is the client that will be used. And that's why I say pop 0. So now it's taken away from the list of clients. If it is popped, nobody else can use it. This DB client has access to it, but no other user can be using that specific client. But this will only be used if the length of free DB clients. This is necessary to do. I'm creating a ternary here. What I'm saying is I'm going to pop the first database connection only if there are available connections in the list. Or else, and this is the really nice part of it. It took me quite a while to come up with this solution. So if there are no free clients, imagine for a second that client 1 is being used by a user and client 2 is being used by another user. Then you will have no pool of clients anymore because this will be empty. Nobody can use those clients. So what I do is I say, well, worst case, if all the DB clients are being used, I will then just say that I will create an httpx async client on the fly. And this async client that I'm building on the fly, it's kind of what I did there. You can see that. It's just going to have something a little bit special. I'm going to set the headers of this client to have something specific. This is something I invented. It doesn't have to be called like that, but just so you see it. I call it temporal, temporal, and then this just says yes. And I created this temporal because I know that this will only live as long as I'm using this specific function. And then this temporal async client will be dead. It will close the connection. It will not exist anymore. On the other hand, the client that I popped from the FreeDB clients should still be alive and the connection should still exist. Let me just save it and send it just to see I don't have any bugs. It seems that's working fine at the moment. Then what I will do is I'm just going to get a response from the database, and this will be, obviously it has to take time, so I will have to await. Now I'm going to finally connect to the database. So if I have not connected to it, so I will await, and then we'll say that the DB client, that's this client. It can be from the pool of clients, or it can be a client that I create on the fly, if the worst case that all the clients in the pool are occupied. And then this DB client will be host. This is part of the httpx. Remember, this is using the httpx library. And then I will post to, let me just copy the URL for it. I will post to this URL. That's localhost port 8529. And this is something that you must have in place. You cannot change it. So it has to be there. And then the second argument is the data that I want to pass, and the data will be Q. And you remember that Q is the command, the AQL command. Once I send the request, this is what I will do. I say if temporal, that temporal is coming from, just so you remember it, from here. So this is what I will do. I say that if temporal is not in, and this is going to be in the client header. So I will check, I cast it on a string. So I will say if the DB client dot headers. Now this DB client has a set of headers. So this happens automatically. You don't have to think about it. The headers are there. And I created this temporal header in there. So what I do is say if the word temporal is not in the DB client headers, that means that it came from the connection pool. So what I will do is I will say free DB clients dot append, and then I will append the DB client. So in this line here, I'm saying, well, I have already connected to the database. I run the query, and then I want to put back the client to the connection pool. That's what happens there. Or else, meaning that this was not a client coming from the connection pool, then what I will do is I will just say that the client has to be closed. Oh, sorry, closed, like so. Then I just close it. So just to walk you through this again, because it's quite tricky to probably understand it the first time, I have two clients in the free connection pool. If I can pop one of the clients and use it because nobody's using it, I will use it in the DB client. If there are no free clients, I will create my own client on the fly in this part there. And then I just set this temporal header to yes. You can invent whatever you want here. It's just so I know that this client is temporal because I could not use any other client from the pool. The connection is being sent, and then when the response comes back, I can just check it. If the client was part of the connection pool, I put it back into the pool because I can use it with other users now. If the client was an extreme case because there were no free clients in the pool, I will just close the connection and kill that client basically. And then what I can do is I will say that the response, and then just so you see what I can get out of it, I will say json.loads. So I want to load the string that comes from the res.content. This res, how do I know what it contains? Because you can print it. You know what? This, I will do it in a different way. After I close the connection, I will just print the response, this res that I got from the database. Save it. Let's look at the terminal. Send the request. You can see here the response is an object. We got that 201, meaning that it has been created. And what I will do now is I'm going to check the database. In the items collection, you can see that the item has been created. So we have the item name A, and I need to zoom out just a little bit more. Yeah, we have the ID. Here we have the key. You can see 91A6A. And if we look at here, 91A6A. So this is actually working fine. Now, obviously, you don't want to just get the response as an object, and that's why I told you to do this. So that's the response, and then I will print res again. Now, how I know all this is because I have analyzed the response, and then I have been able to say that I want to get the content from it. So I will save it again, click on send, and now you can see that. Let me first of all go to the database. Now we have two items, and then we can see what the content contains. This is the content of the response. We have a key, we have the ID, and then we have all these. So now, of course, it's up to you to analyze what you want to do with the response from the database. So this is how you create, as a recap, this is how you create a connection pool. This is how you divide routes into different folders, or into different files, so you don't have an overwhelming piece of code. It's organized. And this is how you can actually create your own item by using the connection pool, and in the worst case, have a client that connects to the database on demand. So I hope you like the video. It is very advanced, and please, you know the deal, like, subscribe, and get notifications if you think it's worth it. Thank you very much.